Okay, thank you for coming. I hope everybody's having a great time. My name is Sergi Mesonero. I'm the head of ISFE Esports in the Interactive Software Federation of Europe. The ISFE is the trade body that represents the video games industry at European level. We are based in Brussels, and among our members we have the national trade associations, for example, UKI, the United Kingdom Interactive Entertainment Association, and also the direct membership of the video games companies, Activision Blizzard, Microsoft, Sony, Nintendo, Electronic Arts, Riot Games, Ubisoft, etc. Before I introduce the panelists, please allow me a couple of minutes of self-promotion. During the worst of the pandemic, video games provided much entertainment, escapism, opportunities to socialize. And the video games industry stepped up to offer video games products during a very difficult time, also providing opportunities for socializing, for promoting public health messages, and to donate for relief efforts. And esports had an immense growth during the pandemic. And in this context, at ISFE we published, the guide to esports. If you go to our table in the expo area, you can get a free copy. It's the first time that the video games industry at international level, including the associations from the United States, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and of course Europe, have published a document to educate mostly policymakers and decision makers and institutions to educate into what are esports, etc. Most of you probably won't need it, but if you want a free copy or many free copies, please go to our table. Also, you can get our key facts, which is a high-level summary of the video games, of the figures of the video games industry and market in Europe, including the United Kingdom, and we publish this every year as well for free in our table. And to transport both, you can get our organic cotton tote bag, which is all the rage this year here at ESI London. And we are starting with a panel. Sorry for the auto-promo, for the self-promo, but we have today 4 incredibly interesting guests. I'm not saying this out of politeness. I am very happy with the group that we have assembled. After more than 15 years in the esports sector, one tends to hear the same messages repeated time and time again, but this is not and I'm actually guilty of repeating myself many times, but this is not the case of our guests today. They represent very different types of projects and different sizes of companies, but all of them, though, aim at leaving a positive footprint, creating opportunities in a way that not only improves real lives, but also helps fighting negative perceptions around video games and esports. So this panel will take a look at some of the positive social, economic, psychological impact that esports are having or can have on people, organizations, and communities and territories. And now I will introduce, the panelists actually are going to introduce themselves. I'm going to start, left to right. I've never gotten this right, but let's start with Oliver, please.
Thank you, Sergey. Anything else to promote? Any time left?
Yes, you still have plenty of time to promote yourself if you need it.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. I'm Ollie Weingarten. I'm the founder and chief exec of London United. If you don't know who we are, we're an esports org that is synonymous for using gaming and esports to promote social issues.
Hi, everyone. I'm Becky. I am the senior partnerships manager at NSE. If you don't know who NSE are, NSE stands for National Student Esports. We run the British University Esports Championship, and that we have over 100 universities take part in our tournaments of our esports titles of around 11 games, and we have thousands of students competing in our tournaments, and we also, whilst competitive play is at core of what we do, we address a lot of community projects and trying to get students employed after university. We have a lot of programs alongside of our competitive offering.
Hi everyone, I'm Mo Isap. I'm CEO and founder of Info Group. We operate Host at Media City, the home of skills and technology at Media City, Salford. What we do is we run technology and skills hubs across the UK. And our hub in Manchester and Salford is going to be opening a game tech campus over the weekend coming. And our three areas of focus is skills. We run one of the largest digital skills bootcamp operations in the UK. We put 1,000 people, career breakers, career changers into jobs, particularly now into game tech careers. We do applied innovation using technologies like AI, game tech technologies for bricks and mortar companies to adopt, as well as supporting startups and new founders to scale their innovation. And again, we'll be doing that in game tech. So very excited to be here. And hopefully next time I come, I'll have some merchandise to promote as well.
Hello, everyone. My name is Augusto. I'm the CEO of Teleperformance in Portugal. For the ones that don't know what Teleperformance does or is, Teleperformance is what is called BPO. It's a business process outsourcing company. So we provide services for many of the most well-known companies in the world. We are a public company. We are listed in France. We are part of the CAC 40. We employ close to 14,000 people in Portugal. That's a subsidiary that I'm responsible for, and more than 420,000 people across the globe. And we recently launched our Esports arena in Portugal, which is the largest Esports arena in the country. And we started our partnership with Benfica to have our own Esports team to play FIFA in the different European tournaments.
Thank you very much. First, a general question for everybody, and anyone can pick it up. 2 years after the start of the pandemic, which has had terrible consequences for almost everybody and every sector, I was wondering whether, on the other hand, it has given also an opportunity to highlight the possibilities that video games and esports can provide. I mean, in the bad, let's say, this bad situation may have helped to put video games and in particular esports in the minds of people that were not endemic on the sector. Do you think that this is true in your experience? Has the pandemic helped put esports in the minds and in the actions of other people?
Yeah, I'm happy to start. I think the short answer is yes. If you go back to basics and you look at gaming and esports, there's often been a stigma attached to it. And during the pandemic, it was recognized that, and I know we're here to talk about esports, but we can't ignore the big brother of gaming as well, that actually there was useful utility and function around it for young children specifically to stay engaged from a social perspective with their friends, from an educational perspective. And I think the stigma has been removed, and the advancement of technology and a lot of technological output has been showcased, particularly to parents who are maybe regulating screen time, regulating in-app purchases, etc. And from an employment and education perspective, it's now, I mean, the credibility is there that having a career in esports is accepted. Having a career in gaming is accepted. I'm sure we'll talk a bit more about it. But long story short, I think that the pandemic helped showcase what a lot of the people in this environment are doing as well, and it's made it very credible and removed any stigma.
On the topic of the pandemic, we found that a lot of students that played in our tournaments and are part of our community, they used being part of their esports societies and getting involved in university esports like a real way to connect with others whilst everyone was stuck at home, and it really just helped drive that kind of social cohesion. And I think the pandemic really highlighted how esports can be used as a vehicle for that. I mean, we do a student survey at the end of every academic year, and one of the main things we find in that is that we ask why people have got involved in university esports and their motivations for that. And part of that is so people can kind of get better at the games they play and have fun, but most of it is to make friends and to have that social connection with others.
I think the other highlight and spotlight that this sector's had over the pandemic is regional and national policymakers have started to wake up to the real impact that this sector can have in terms of both GVA and social impact. So obviously the exponential commercial boost that the industry and the large sort of organizations have had, and the sort of acquisitions and deals that are going through, has started to put this onto the radar of regional and national government. Because if you were to read any national strategy or regional strategy on innovation, technology, esports and game tech, you will not find. You'll find digital, you'll find cyber, you'll find AI, you'll find those sort of technology areas. But now what you see, and we've experienced it ourselves, because in Greater Manchester, we're now about to secure hopefully a £10 million investment at Media City on game tech, which would never have happened if it wasn't for the exponential visibility and boost that this industry and sector has had. The job now is to ensure that we are coordinated and we are impactful in the regional and national context around society, mobility, jobs, skills, and economic growth.
It's hard to be the last one answering the question. I agree with everything that has been said, which is the easy answer. But I also believe that the pandemic didn't help create this, but it did help creating a lot of more visibility in every single aspect. I think the most important aspect of what the pandemic generated was that a lot of the big corporations, a lot of the big companies started to look at how to bridge that gap between what was happening before the pandemic and what it needed to happen during the pandemic to keep everything moving. What happened was companies started to try to reinvent the wheel first. And then at some point, because the pandemic was taking much longer than expected, started to look at, okay, what are the verticals, what are the industries that have been doing this? And the esports and the gaming industry has been doing this for quite some time. So the best alternative was to go back to the people that were running the industry, that were deep in the industry, and start to look at what things can be done in a different way to actually go in that direction. What I do believe is that by doing that, it also generated a lot of opportunities on new things that can be done, new aspects of the business that can be improved, new aspects of the business that can be done in a different way. So I do believe that it helped. It's not only the pandemic itself, but it's also how long it took, or how long it's taking the pandemic to go away. So people start to drastically change the way they work.
Just jumping on what Mo was saying, I think he's right, and there's a little bit more work that we need to do to raise the profile of esports and the value of esports and job creation and value to the creator economy to UK government. Esports isn't recognised really by them. We talk about social impact in the community as a title of this panel. I don't think that there's enough recognition of the impact of esports in communities at a government level. Particularly in my role as chair of the UK Esports Teams Committee, we're trying to raise visibility for the sector on that point.
Thank you very much. I'm going to focus now on the endemic organizations, which NSE and London United. And have you seen increased interest from your partners or from new clients starting with the pandemic? And what these new opportunities, what they are looking in your organizations? What type of things they are looking for when they want to partner London United or the NSE?
Really interesting, actually, because as an esports org, we have got players competing at professional level in Valorant and grassroots. And when we got into the VCT, quicker than expected, naive Ollie thought that brands would fall hand over fist for activations with us at the VCT level. Actually, what they were more interested in is our Centre of Excellence in Camden and the people that are coming through there for regular community events, our education initiative. So I think that we always talk about brands wanting to activate in esports, but not quite understanding how to activate in esports, but being told they need to. I think they're becoming a lot more sophisticated and mature with their outlook, and it's not just about brand visibility and eyeballs at the highest level of competition. It's about community initiatives, it's about social impact. So for me, as an organization that is founded on those values, it's been quite interesting to engage with challenger brands, endemic brands, non-endemics, government stakeholders, foundations, etc., who are all interested in trying to have almost a piece of the pie and see how they can get some visibility there.
I think, for us, all the brands we work with, whilst they support the British University Sports Championship, they also want to do something else alongside that, focusing on that community and supporting the community. So, for example, something we do with Intel is the Intel Future Gen program, where we take 20 students each year who are interested in working in esports after university. And we give them buddies in the industry. We give them access to events like this. I can see some of them in the audience over there. And without those partners coming on board and wanting to give something back to the community, as well as supporting competitive play, they're just creating so many more opportunities for people to develop their skills and look at jobs and get into the industry. And so, I would say that most brands we work with and have talks with want to focus on that community side as well as the competitive side too.
Thank you. And Augusto, as I mentioned to you on the phone, I mean, you are in one of the biggest companies nobody has ever heard of, because your company is really, really massive. And it's not, I mean, it's quite connected to the video games ecosystem, but not necessarily endemic to the video games ecosystem. And I was wondering, what are the qualities that esports have that brought your organization, Teleperformance, to build your own esports project, such as the arena and the B2B event that was organized in Portugal too?
Well, I think that to better understand what is the impact that it has, I need to start by explaining a little bit of what is the process that we do. So out of the 14,000 people that we have in Portugal, close to 12,000 people are not Portuguese. So it's people that we relocate from all the different countries across Europe so they can work in our multilingual operations out of Portugal. So first you understand that we're moving a massive amount of people from all the different countries to one specific country to support those European companies, European support that we do. The second point is 90% of our employees are game enthusiasts. So either people that are in the gaming community, either playing esports or watching esports. So that when you combine those two, what you find in common for this big community of people that we have is that we needed to move a little bit forward to what they are really interested in. And they're really interested in being part of a company in which 20% of the support that we give is support for gaming companies or streaming companies. So they can come work with us and do what they love, but they can also do it on their free time. So back in the old days, we used to see that the open spaces for people to chill out, to enjoy, and so on. There were places where they could play ping pong, where they could play mini football or stuff like that. Today, that's esports. So when you look at the entire employee value proposition, and every company today is talking about that, this is a core part of what we do. This is a core part of how to attract talent. And also it helps put the name of the company in the places where our employees are. Our employees have been for a long time in the gaming events, in the esports events, and we haven't been there. So that's the reason why we drastically changed and we shifted towards have a more active participation in the esports industry with our own esports team, with our esports arena, and then we're giving something back to the community itself. So there are public events that we're doing there. we're bringing people and we're bringing big companies in the gaming sector to launch their products in our eSports arena, where our employees, family, friends, and people in the community can participate as well.
Mo, this week you are launching in Salford, you just mentioned, the Game Tech Media City project. Can you elaborate on it, and why should we be excited about this launch? And I would also like to ask why your tech and skill hubs are not located, or are located outside of major urban centers.
So this is probably the most exciting news of the two-day festival, the Game Tech Salford launch. I invite you all to come along. We have a festival on the weekend, another festival. We invented the weekend. You probably don't know this. Salford invented the weekend. Big news, right? So this is, it's every day is a learning day, and we invented the weekend. So what you do on the weekend, we want to celebrate. And we play games on the weekend, and that's what we're going to celebrate. And we're launching our Game Tech campus on the Friday morning, which is an ESI breakfast as well with our industry partners AXR. And then over the weekend, we're just going to have an extravaganza of fun. And that's really the bedrock of this in terms of what we do and why we do it at Media City, and why you all should be now looking at us at Media City as a home, or another home, or a place to be part of that community. Because there are three fundamentals, and I think this is something we all need to really sort of focus on. The attributes that we bring at host, at Media City, and wherever we run our operations are first and foremost that technology must be about humanizing and the human. Too often and too many times, different technology revolutions have happened and they have not made the impact on society and individuals and mankind the way they should have done. Only a few benefited and the rest just became consumers, and even as consumers, it was unaffordable or inaccessible. So everything we do must center around the person. And how are we doing what we're doing to the benefit of the person, of the individual, the citizen, the people of our communities are going to benefit from this. And so it's so important, and that's why we do skills and we run our skills boot camps to allow people and young people, colleges, schools. We have some of the most disadvantaged communities in the greater Manchester area and in the London area and everywhere else. How do these young people who are on this sort of very, very thin line, and especially now with the recession coming up and all of the issues that this new generation is going to face, how do we inspire them to believe that there's a phenomenal career and a future in your community? And that brings the second point, that it must be about belonging to a place, that you invest in the community and the place that you're in. And I think esports and this sector has a phenomenal transformational impact, that the technology is accessible and the barriers of location are no longer. But you can be part of a community in your homestead. You don't have to leave to migrate to different places, to Portugal, to Berlin, to wherever. You can do it in Salford, in Burnley, in Birmingham, wherever else you come from, and be proud of where you come from. And the third thing is the culture. The culture and the lens through which we operate must be inclusive, must be not just in terms of gender or ethnicity, but into society. That representation and everyone feeling that they can access and be comfortable in this space is the paramount importance that we must bring through what we do. So those are the three values and the bedrock of what we do and why we do it, and why Game Tech at Media City is going to be phenomenal. And just to put infrastructure to it, we are now investing £10 billion in the next 10 years at Media City. Already Media City has 10,000 people working there. It's the most wired certified campus in Europe. It's got phenomenal infrastructure in creative and digital media. 65,000 people work in the creative digital sector in Greater Manchester. Media City alone generates £300 million of GVA every year. So for any organization looking at a place to operate talent-wise. We have 4 amazing universities. University of Salford, the great Maria Stukov is here. It's her fault that I'm here, actually. And having universities with industry, with academia, with society, with schools and colleges, you build an ecosystem. An ecosystem that is built for people, for communities, and for prosperity. We do leveling up with esports from the ground up. One thing we have to be clear, and Ollie's right, government does trickle-down economics. We'll just put something into the northeast or the northwest and it'll create 1,000 jobs. But you know, after 5 years, those jobs migrate, and it's the same people who travel from London and elsewhere to take those jobs, so people who come from a particular background. This has the roots to create absolute mobility for every citizen and every individual. That's why I'm passionate about esports. And those who've been in esports, I congratulate you for bringing esports to this point. But now, guys, we've got to get serious. We've got to up the ante to be competing with other areas of technology revolution and saying gamification is not just about esports. Every industry, every sector can benefit, and the skills are absolutely the currency for why we do it.
That is an amazing, powerful vision, Mo. Oliver, I think that you wanted to say something?
I think Mo for Prime Minister would have been more apt.
We've already done that race, so I missed it.
In relation to access to tech, Becky, you mentioned how this is also a very important aspect of the projects at NSE. Can you please elaborate?
Yeah, sure. So I think, you know, there is an element of, you think about esports, you think about high-tech PCs, you think about laptops. Not all students have access. I mean, I'm talking mostly from the student university community perspective, but that goes wider as well. But not all students will have access to those high-spec computers to be able to play or take part in esports. And something we do at NSE alongside our partner Intel is we do a program called Event in a Box, where students can apply as part of their societies. They want to run an event. They just want to kind of get their hands on high-spec tech. We'll send out 10 Intel PCs and monitors and peripherals and all that stuff. And those societies can use that for, you know, the weekend and give access to those who don't have access to those high-end technology to actually be able to play the games, and then they can actually feel part of the community and play as much as they want over that weekend, and then we'll take it back and then it goes somewhere else. It kind of does a little tour around the country from university to university. And also you're finding that some universities have loan schemes as well, which is great. But I think it's something that people don't really talk that much about, that tech poverty. And yeah, I'd like to see more ways of that being addressed by universities and brands, and yeah, just trying their best to kind of give access to those who don't have access to it.
Thank you. One topic that goes across the 4 of your companies and projects is the connection between education and employment. Especially, Oliver, you quite highlighted this topic when speaking with me. Can you elaborate on how education arrived with employment inside London United? How do you connect both areas?
Yeah, I think if I look at my background first, when I was trying to get into, be a lawyer in the sports industry, work experience was hugely important for me, and I recognized how difficult it was to access opportunities. So I've tried to use a little bit of legacy learning, so to speak, and bring it into London United, and recognizing, as we spoke about during the pandemic, how the profile of esports has been raised. More and more people want to work in this sector. We just had a meeting this morning talking about how can we offer work experience placements, with the right structure around them to people that are looking, because there's so much demand. For me, what I would like to see is a pathway to employment which has some structure around it. So we've put in place the United Education Programme, working with the Strive Group, where there's a mixture of physical and virtual learning of core skills that you require. And you got to remember, working in esports is no different to working elsewhere generally. If it's social media, it's video production, public speaking, video editing, these are all skills you need anyway. And then on top of that, there's 70 hours of work experience, and it's work experience that will benefit these trainees or students or whatever demographic they're coming from, that they can put it on their CV and it helps give them a leg up. Now, of course, if there's some great nuggets in there, you can employ them, but the problem is we can't employ everybody. And if we go back to talking about policy at a government level, I don't think there's enough incentivization in the ecosystem for us and others to employ and give opportunity. So the United Education is about giving a leg up, but we're not saying it's the final solution, because there needs to be more that's done. There's apprenticeship schemes where the training will be paid for, but the salary is not paid for, and we all have limited budgets. And we can talk about investment in esports as a separate topic all day long, in the UK being way behind other countries. But from an employment perspective, more needs to be done, I think.
I think there's a bigger, Ollie's absolutely bang on. Pedagogical impact that esports and the games environment brings to young people and education particularly. You'll have heard of the stats, London's outperforming the rest of the country, particularly the north, when the GCSE results and everything else came about. One thing you can't underestimate is that young people engaging in games and gaming and using that as the transformational element to give them that motivation and also appreciation of their skills to enhance their outcomes and attainment in school and college. There's so many kids out there that are classified as SEND, special needs, learning difficulties, and all of that stuff. And when you've got a disadvantaged community that's struggling with so many problems that come through the classroom or the doors of the school, supporting these kids, they are labeled as being the lesser of that cohort. But then you put them into a games environment, a problem-solving environment, an interactive, immersive, a different community, a different paradigm, and they come alive. And for educationalists to use that medium to enhance and really work on the pedagogical impact of those young people, then they can excel and believe that they also have superpowers. So often kids are labeled at primary school, written off. Even parents do that. My child needs special attention and everything else. Here's a place where they become superheroes. To harness that is real tangible currency. We're going to work with 500 schools this year, 1,000 next year. We have programs across all of our schools. Environment, that's the essence of what we're doing. Fun with education to give these young people the appreciation of their own talents. Self-belief is the one thing that people underestimate is missing, where communities are struggling to put food on the table. Those kids come with that handicap. They don't have self-belief. They don't have the confidence. But then you go into a game environment where they excel and where they can solve problems and win, gives them the self-belief. And self-belief, if you speak to any educationalist, will tell you that that confidence in attacking and tackling education is a fundamental to success. That is what this brings universally, not just kids who play games in a very high level, but every young person feeling a belonging and a community and fun. Make STEM and technology fun. You might go into cyber, you might go into AI, you might go into something else. But if you can have fun with it, that's the real power of education, making it engaging.
And Augusto, you mentioned before the role that video games and esports have in attracting talent and improving your recruitment opportunities. But you also mentioned to me how they have a role in upskilling, which is connected to education or to continuous education. Can you explain a bit how do you focus this on your organization?
Yes, and first I think that it's important to mention that, especially today, with the situation that is happening in the world, every company and every institution has a key responsibility to help the community integrate. And I think many companies are working on the impact sourcing initiatives and how to give better alternatives to people in different communities. But I do believe that it doesn't stop there. So we cannot talk about how important it is, the impact sourcing initiatives and how we are hiring people in the different communities, but we also need to understand where this is going. And I think that When we look at the jobs that we have today, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, or even 5 years ago, some of them didn't even exist. What has been happening with the gaming industry and with the so-called metaverse, and I was listening to the previous session around the metaverse as well, is that this is a work in progress. This is in the making. Because of that, there are many jobs that today people do not see that will be key in the future. They are key today, but it will be even more relevant in the future. So I do believe that what happened over the last 2 years with the growth of the gaming industry, the streaming services, the esports during the pandemic, it was a wake-up call for many companies, many industries, that we need to, right now, make sure that we are up to speed, that we're using this to create the framework and the environment to be able to develop people for the works that are going to come in the next couple of years. We don't know as a fact what are the jobs that will be created 10 years from now or 15 years from now, but we do know that community moderation, for example, was not something that people were talking about 5 years ago. It was key in the gaming industry because people don't go to the games for the community, but they stay there for the communities. So moderating the communities, moderating the content, the creation of the 3D objects, those are things that people were not talking in different companies. They were embedded in the gaming industry, but they were not out there. Now everyone is talking about that. So if we don't start upskilling the people that we have in the communities, in the different companies, we're going to have a serious shortage of people in the following years, but also we will not be doing what we are supposed to be doing to actually develop and keep our people working with us. And today we see that in many countries where hiring people is being extremely hard. So we have a perfect environment and a perfect opportunity to push for our impact sourcing initiatives and bring the right people to our companies, develop them fast. Hopefully they will stay with us, but if they don't, hopefully they will be our clients, our partners in the future. So I do believe that is a key point that we need to do to kind of evolve our employee value proposition looking forward.
Thank you. So in our key facts of 2020, sorry Oli, self-promo again, we published some very interesting figures on the impact of video games during pandemic. About 2/3 of those surveyed mentioned that video games have helped with their mental well-being during the pandemic. And I think that we are all have this quite clear, but I would like to ask, especially the endemic organizations, on the more complicated relationship between physical well-being and video gaming and esports, because I know that it's also a topic that concerns and that you've been working on.
I think a lot of people have this perception of, those who take part in esports as not being that physically active and quite isolating and sitting in their rooms on their own and playing games. I mean, as part of our student survey, which has a sample size of around 500 students, 70% of our community are physically active 3 times a week. So that really goes against, that stereotype of gamers and people who taking part of an esports not being active. I think it's, quite the opposite. And
Yeah, look, I deal with parents a lot, and I always start by saying I don't want your child sitting on their ass 23 hours a day playing video games. The importance of them treating their body like a normal sports athlete is important in esports if they want to have a successful career. Mental health, physical health, nutrition, exercise, it's all really important that they understand that addressing it from an early age will benefit them long term. I think mental health has been spoken about quite a lot, particularly during the pandemic. Again, if there was a stigma attached to it, it's definitely not there anymore. We've run an event around mental health with some high-profile influencers to talk about just because everything looks okay on the outside doesn't mean it's okay in the inside. And I think it's a really important message to distill down to the grassroots level, because I think so often we forget about the bottom-up approach, that they need to be cognizant of these facts.
I would like to give some minutes. I think that we still have time. Is there any question from the audience to any of our guests? Anyone? If not, yeah, please.
Are there any studies or information or results that you can share in regards to career placement statistics as a result of the career programs stemming from esports education?
We, as part of Skills City, and I mentioned we run one of the largest digital skills boot camps. 3 of our boot camps are very linked to game tech, games dev, and 2 Unity boot camps, programmer artists. And we've had phenomenal, nearly 100% job success. And the mixture of people who have been probably career changers, career breakers, female, left their careers for family, coming back from different, being interior designers and now working in games dev or game studios. So we've seen 100% nearly success rate, and we see that just exponentially growing. It's about the type of skills, and I very much agree, it's transferable skills, and also connecting with industry and employers to be ready to take those people on. This is not a free market approach. I do not believe in the fact that you can just throw people out of an education environment and they will find their way. You have to bring industry and work with them to say, what are the skills you're looking for? What are the skill sets that you need right now? And then through our programs, whether it's traditional university to skills alternative boot camps like us or anything else, we will present you those people. That then leads to success. And once the market sees the value, then obviously then in itself, it'll create its own dynamic. So we can share with you our impact results if you meet afterwards.
Yeah, it's also very high level and not a focus in Europe, mostly on North America, but on the guide you can have some examples of North American initiatives linked to educational and opportunities. So if you...
One point that I have is, at this stage, I think that the need is for more institutions to help develop. If I can share numbers with you, is usually hire between 400 to 500 people per week. Okay. At this stage, around 25% of the people that I hire come from educational institutions that are investing on this. But I would happily have 100% of the people coming from these institutions. When you look at rough numbers, it might not be exactly accurate, but when I look at the numbers or the money that I spend on the higher agencies and recruitment institutions, I spend usually in a normal year 40 to 50 million euros. Okay, so I would happily invest in any institution that can help me do it in a more efficient way while we are helping the communities. So I do believe that my case is not the only case. I do believe that there are many more companies that are in the same situation.
Are there any other questions? Any short questions? Yes? One more? Do we have time for one more? One more.
I hope this is a quick one, but how important do your professional players take as a role, like in terms of being role models for social impact in communities? In traditional sports like football, you see on Match of the Day, you see professional players going to schools and talking with children. Do you think that esports players play a similar role in social impact in communities? And how important do you think that is, that they might act as ambassadors for esports teams and the esports industry as a whole?
That's a great question. I think short answer is I don't think many of them do enough. I think there's no secret that these professional players just want to play. They don't like distraction. They don't like anything that's going to put them off. But I think as the industry matures, as the contracts mature, that they'll become a lot more like a traditional sports player's contract with obligations. Of course, there's promotional obligations, and you've got to do stuff with the publishers, and they've got their coaching, etc. But around social impact, I don't think anyone does enough. And I think you've got to also ask, how much do they care? I think that's a question you've got to ask them. And some of them care about it more than others. So I think everyone can do better on that.
Okay, so yes, to end with the session, is there any call to action or idea that you would like that sticks with the audience?
If you need directions to Media City, please do come and see me afterwards.
If you want to get a copy of Sergey's reports at the back of the room.
Yeah, that's important. We need to get rid of them.
And if you have people that is looking for a job, look for me. We're hiring. So.
Okay.
If anyone wants to know more about the university scene, come and find me afterwards. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. A big round of applause for the excellent panelists.